0. I just have it automatically set to go to 0 here very soon. I see a couple phones out. Let's put the phones away, or I get phones. I know I had my phone out, but now we got to get it off. What are you doing? You checking your grade? Really quick. Oh no, I said if you.
Hey, my team.
Purely my fault.
That means your hands are gonna be.
Yeah.
Good.
Then you have.
You don't forget.
Yeah, I did. Look at the other side. Huh? For the Revolutionary War.
Your total grade? Wow.
I didn't even do it. I'll pull that up and hang.
I might have just accidentally not typed it in. Maybe I forgot to.
It's only 50%. I'm looking at 50%.
Yeah, I put it on the sheet. It's just sometimes I forget. Yeah. Anybody else have this? And
Wait, that is.
wait, I have it. Wait.
Just a second ago.
I already have kids.
You got 1 minute, go. You can 1 minute. 38, 17.
Maybe.
So I will get that up. Remember, I drew that on the board. I'll put up my master copy of that on Keys. But which branch of government did I put on top, even though it's Article 2? Then what's over here? Article 1 and Article 3. And which is the big check the Supreme Court has over both the legislative and executive? Yeah, judicial review. In fact, they just announced a bit of that this morning. President Trump had tried to hire one of the board members of the Federal Reserve Bank, and that is actually explicitly violating the law, but he said he has the power as the executive. And so the Supreme Court is going to rule on that. Now, part of the law says the president just cannot fire somebody, sir. So they remain independent, but he said, I'm going to do it. This is a big deal. This has happened a lot. Yeah. Oh, that's for me. Anybody else have that? Thank you. Tony is wearing a cuff jersey on the. I don't mind it. I'm not just recall. So, and I like easy. All right, let's get back to this. The House, the House impeaches, it goes to trial in the Senate, how many senators or what fraction has to vote? 2/3. Yeah, 2/3 have to vote to convict. Has there been has ever been a president impeached and convicted? No. Who's the closest? Johnson by 1 vote. Then Trump, this is his second impeachment. There were Republicans who voted to convict him, but not to 2/3. And let's see what else. So what I'm gonna do for that test, we do it Monday, and we'll do it Tuesday. And I'll just put it up on the screen. I'll make a little triangle and I'll have a blank for the branches, 2 lines for powers for executive and legislative, and then 1 line for each check. Supreme Court should be easy. It's judicial review for both. And that just a basic little quiz, but just to reinforce it, I didn't want to put that on the master test. I think for obvious reasons, the big unit test because it can get too big. To do a little quiz. I'm gonna decide we'll do a Bill of Rights quiz or not. Where do we finish it? Did we get to no radical change? Did we get the Andrew Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh, so we've got an establishment clause too? We have what? We did?
Yeah.
We really ruled.
Obviously.
Oh, wait, before we get ratification battle, how many states is needed to ratify the Constitution? 2/3 of the House and the Senate. How many states? Yeah, it's really hard to ratify the Constitution. Only 27 times. And Madison's responsible for what, 40%. So the ratification battle begins. Now it's going to go to 13 state assemblies, and they wrote in it 9 states, which is funny because it required 13 states to change the articles. But they need the 3 biggest and most populous states. It doesn't matter if they get 9 states if these 3 aren't there. New York, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. They need those 3. So that's the battle. New York looked like it'd be the hardest fight. And for the Constitution to the sun. Against the Constitution, stormy clouds, and bathroom humor. So, we're jumping right here, the Federalists. The Federalists were people who wanted the Constitution. And we're not going to name them all, but Washington, Hamilton, they became allies even though Washington really didn't like Hamilton at this time. Remember Hamilton wanted to create a dictatorship? John Adams, but John Adams was in London. John Adams was the US ambassador to England with no power at all because of the articles. James Madison, there are others. Most were urban, merchant class, but obviously there's rural, plantation owner, plantation owner. So once again, you can't paint it with a single brush. And what they want is strong central government. We need that strong central government. Remember Shays' rebellion. Shays' rebellion, I'm sorry. And that executive. If you ever hear anybody say that they wanted a weak central government in the Constitution, that is ahistoric. And don't trust them. Because they're trying to use their version of the past to do something today. And they obviously stuff we talked about, regulating commerce, remember New York, Connecticut, foreign affairs, Treaty of Paris, and that whole issue of taxing and money. They wanted a sound financial system. And you can't have currency without taxation. You don't have a financial system. It will have no value and it will collapse. If a country can't tax effectively, the country dies. We can see that almost happened in Germany, kind of happened in Uganda, almost happened in Venezuela. It might be happening at this moment in Argentina. And here's the biggie. Bonds. Not only do they have to borrow money, but remember how speculators scooped up the bonds of veterans? They want those bonds back at 100% of value. Almost all the people who went to the Constitutional Convention and all the Federalists were bondholders. They want their money. And then that once again, keep the riffraff out. Government of a better sort. Protect the minority. Very important. They talk about it all the time. So this cartoon on top, these were put in newspapers all over the United States. And they acted like we have the edifice of state. And each pillar or column is a state. And to hold up the edifice or to hold up the building of state, they need all the columns. So here, Rhode Island, Delaware, the first state to ratify it, and so on. And this is happening right now in Massachusetts. And will they ratify? Because if you don't have them all, the building won't hold it. It's a really common picture they would show. There's a lot of these. The anti-federalists were, of course, almost forgot one thing. They have a big advantage. Even if they don't like each other, they want one thing. What's that one thing? The Constitution. So they can avoid all their differences and focus on that. No one liked Hamilton. But they were all allied together. There's going to be 2 political parties that will form despite what Madison said. And one of those 2 parties will be called the Federalists. The political party called the Federalists have nothing to do with the Federalists in the ratification battle. Hamilton was a Federalist, but Madison was the other party, a Republican. Which, by the way, the Republican Party then is not the same as the Republican Party now. Don't blame me. The anti-federalists were opposed to the Constitution. And so there are a lot of people, most famously, Patrick Henry, and there's the Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, one of the great patriots. Sam Adams, remember Son of Liberty, but he was quite ill by then. George Mason was actually part of the Constitution, but he had one major disagreement with it. They're mostly rural, and they feared that central government. They feared the executive power. Too much power in the hands of this government, tyranny. But some of these were just just the states. State government, that's where the arrow going down, will lose power if the national government is stronger. Speaking of the national government, what do you call that system where you have the national government with certain powers and then state government with certain powers? What do we call it? Come go whisper it. Federalist. That's what we call it, the federal government. So here's another one. They really feared that this would just lead to the merchant class, the moneyed interests controlling everything. And so instead of having some kind of democratic republic, it's going to be ruled by the rich, AKA an oligarch. We'll talk about oligarchy more down the road, but ruled by a tiny little group. And so that's what they feared. So these speculators and bondholders and creditors, and we're just coming to the industrialists, the manufacturers, the industrial revolution. They'll run everything. How can you have a democracy when big money tells everybody what to do? And if you're dependent upon big money, you do what they say. And there's something else that's a truism that they knew from their reading of history. They all knew history pretty good. When you get extreme wealth than just a few, they act even more dictatorial without restraints. History's going to tell them what to do. They start doing more and more things and everything as they have. Build their own personal rockets. So they also feared dual taxation. Taxation of the federal government and the state government. The power to tax is the power to destroy. You can destroy a particular market or even a person by putting 1,000% tax on everything they do. That's how they did prohibition, by 1,000% tax on alcohol. The big one that Mason wanted, but also Thomas Jefferson, who was the ambassador to Paris, of France in Paris. They wanted a Bill of Rights. Back in 1789, Britain wrote a Bill of Rights. And they wanted the rights listed down. Madison said, it's implied in the Constitution, we don't need it. But that was their opposition. But you notice I didn't put Jefferson as an anti-federalist. Jefferson straddled the fence. He straddled the fence on everything. He was very reluctant to take a stand on a lot of things. He really annoyed people by that. He tried to get both sides. But his big thing is, how can we have this without a Bill of Rights? Ironically, the main authors of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson and Adams, were out of the country with the Constitution. So London, Jefferson, and Paris. I'll tell you a little bit more about Jefferson and Paris down the road. Another one was militias. The Constitution says that the military militias will be set up by Congress. And state control of the militia was incredibly important. Incredibly important for state control. If your power is going to be taken away by this new national government, your power will be taken away. Militia is a key element, but especially certain states. Which states were terrified about losing control of their militia? What section? Yes. Southern states were terrified about losing control because of, you got it, slave rebellion. The overriding fear of slave rebellion. The overriding fear. The overriding fear. They talked about it all the time. So basically, Jefferson and Mason went to Madison. We want state control militia and we need a Bill of Rights. They're all over the place. They're not unified at all. Some people are anti-federalists for just purely worried about the states. Some this, some this. Some are elite who don't want dual taxation. Some are working people who are worried about tyranny. So they're not unified, a great advantage. New York, though, was the most important state. Because New York, it was bitterly divided. Upstate versus lower state New York, meaning rural New York versus New York City. If you go to New York today, it's kind of that way. It's New York City and then the rest of the state. So that's why the Federalist Papers were written. Now they were anonymously written, but everybody knew who they were. Madison wrote the most, but it's also John Jay and Alexander Hamilton. And like Cubulus, they took the name of Roman senators. I mentioned that before. So to harken back to the Roman Republic. And so basically, these series of this is a collection of essays written to influence the people choosing. And they laid out the benefits of the Constitution. But this is what we call propaganda. Propaganda tries to lay out a particular point of view to influence them. They want you to believe something about the Constitution. They want you to believe this. Not everything, this. Propaganda has a biased point of view. And who are they talking to? They're talking to the State Assembly of New York. Who are the State Assembly? The elites. These are elites elected by New York, and they have really strict property requirements, which is a tiny group are members of the elite. And they're telling those people in the State Assembly, this Constitution will benefit you. Not everybody, you. And so they flatter them, they try to tell them this, a series of essays. And propaganda, the point of view, it's not that they lie. They could be wrong, but propaganda isn't necessarily a lie. So propaganda by definition, and I want you to add this, it's misleading because they skip stuff. They only tell you certain things and present it in a certain way that will help them. They don't tell you the whole story. You're inundated with propaganda now. Governments do propaganda. That's what advertising is propaganda. But a lot of times you know it's propaganda, but what's the best type of propaganda? When you don't know they're misleading you. When you think it's a legitimate and unbiased source. Of course, everything's biased, but they believe that they're sincerely telling you the certain issues. That's not sincere at all. He might believe this is the best form of government, but he's cherry picking. You don't know it's propaganda. You're greatly influenced. People read Federalist Papers all the time, and they think it's an unbiased look at what the Constitution will be. And they're just simply wrong story. Now, I'm telling you that because Federalist number 10 is propaganda. And I'm not just telling you this to learn propaganda, and also tell you the way what the elite want. You're going to read 6 of these, I believe it is, an AP government. Important to read, but it's propaganda. And actually, it didn't work. But everyone reads it. And so it's one of those things, hey, guys, that's what people look at. And this is the only one of the Federalist Papers, Federalist number 10. They'll mention it, and Federalist number 10 is the only one that will be in the APs for U.S. history. And AP government, they used all 6. AP government's a little bit easier to test because of that, right? Like, no, stuff you need to know. They've used all 6. A couple years ago, it was a dad write an essay on all the Federalist Papers. You knew it, so you could prepare. But still, and it's just so funny. It's not this enshrined bit of wisdom about the Constitution. It's propaganda. So let's get to Federalist number 10. So we mentioned this in class. There'll be no factions. Republic of the elite. He doesn't lie about that. We know what factions are. They're political parties. So everyone, I asked you to get out Federalist number 10. So it should be out in front of you. So get that out. What did I just say? Get it out. Okay, next time. Look off somebody else. Okay. Next time, I couldn't find it. Don't make me look at you and like you're just looking at me funny. Everyone look at the questions. Now, the questions I put on there, here's the thing about the questions. Here's the thing about the questions. This is advanced placement. This is the honors class. And so I shouldn't have to explain this to you. If I put down, Vernon Madison, what are the causes of actions? It's not enough to just simply put down property. Good luck. Oh, why? Explain it. Explain yourself. Show that you know, because you know. If you don't write it down, my assumption is you don't know. And I want to believe you know. Why property? Because he found there to be two political parties. One with property, one without. Upper, lower. And which party would be different? And Madison was worried about being in the minority party because he was part of the property owners. You have to add a little bit. This should go without saying. Since what? You got to explain. It's not enough just to write down. Now, if we're doing like a movie worksheet, yeah, I just want 1 or 2 words because that's just for your notes to write. This, I can know you know what you're talking about. So you have to add a couple more sentences. So you should know that. I shouldn't have to explain it, and I will certainly not say it again. You'll get it. All right. Property was the biggest one, but also religion. Remember their knowledge of history and the religious wars. They're really conscious of this. They were not thinking abstractly. They're taking what they saw in the world and putting it in the document for themselves. So then let's look at the next question. What are the advantages of a republic over democracy? You notice they're small r. So we're not talking about any kind of parties or any, just republic, democracy. Government by representation and democracy. But if you would ask somebody then what they meant by democracy, they didn't mean a true democracy. They thought more of a democratic republic, where we, the voters, can pick our leaders. And we have the power to pick them. And if we don't like the leaders, we can replace them. And if we don't like the Constitution, we can vote for a new one. But it's still representative. We think of democracy, that's usually what we think. But he didn't say that. When he describes a democracy in this, he's talking about 5th century Athens and their democracy created in a little city, well, big city state of Athens, Greece, in the 5th century BCE. And what is a democracy how does a democracy function in 5th century BCE in Athens? The people vote on what? Everything. Every big decision goes to the vote of the citizens. That was Athenian democracy. Everything. A vote of the citizens. That's not what people would have said they wanted for democratic principles in 1787. But he goes back to Athens. So I want you to think about that for a second. So the United States shut down the government last night, 10 o'clock our time. About 90% of all federal workers are laid off. I'm sorry, furloughed. They might or might not get paid. President Trump is threatening to fire most of them. It's got to be an empty threat because the whole entire society would break apart. But he's threatened to do it. I mean, this is a really big deal. The very complexities of the budget, right? In fact, they're going to have another vote on the budget in the United States Senate today, in the next couple hours, right? Fine. If this is the true democracy, who's having the vote? We're going to vote on this. And we'll vote on every part of the budget. But we got to hurry, because we got to vote on everything else in the United States. So as soon as we get done with that, on the corner of Maple and 5th of downtown Columbus, they need a stoplight. So we got to vote on that. Y'all got to vote on that. And then there's a whole issue about garbage pickup in the city parks of Eugene, Oregon. So we got to vote on that. And then we got some major border issues we got to vote on. And you get the point here? What would our entire life be? How big can your country be if it's a true democracy? So what is he saying? The big advantage of republic, and jot this down for your notes, bigger area, right? Bigger area, you can elect representatives who can leave and go to one spot and vote. And especially back in 1787, how would you vote for everything in 1787? At least now I guess we would be on our phone voting. I guess you can all be on the phone because if you just be voting on everything. He's being disingenuous. He's saying our choices are this: a republic of the elite or a democracy like that. And that's not at all what the choices were. The other choice was a democratic republic. But he acts like, no, our only choices are a republic of the elite or this democracy where nothing gets done. And it's implying it will collapse and we'll have anarchy or dictatorship. That's what we call a straw man argument. You're like, this is my argument, but if you really push at it, it falls down. Because it's not real. There are many more choices we can have. Different types of democratic republics. People do this type of argument all the time. You know, either you do it my way or the entire world will be destroyed. To be honest, I'm guilty of it too. I've done that. You know, you give me that, we only have two choices, and this is what we're going to do. You're not really being honest there. It's propaganda. He's misleading people. So, everybody look at the second to last paragraph. Does everyone find the effect of the first difference? Everybody find that. The effect of the first difference. Everyone have that out there? The effect of the first difference. And really lays out fear of factions. Okay. The effect of the first difference, he's talking about sending representatives to one spot, is to refine and enlarge public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens. So, let's say you elect me to be your representative. You have all kinds of different views, it'll flow through me. That's logical, that's a republic, we get that. Of course, if you believe in a democratic republic, if I don't do what a majority want, you get rid of me. That sounds kind I disappear. Whose wisdom may best discern the true intent. Did you catch that? You let me because I have this incline. What about you? Smart. That'd be a good one if I was saying to you, you're ignorant, not very smart, and somebody wants on. How dare you? You don't know, I know, I'm smart. Now, does that always happen? I was the smartest people elected? Every time. Every single time. But who? They're talking to the elected members of the New York Assembly who are all elected. So he's telling those people who are elected, you're what? Smart. And they're like, you're right. I am smart. Thank you. So he's flattering them. Oh, also, what kind of person does Madison believe has the true wisdom to discern with people? People like whom? Like so, and whose patriotism and love of justice will be least likely to sacrifice it for temporary or partial considerations. What's temporary or partial considerations? Suffering. My own personal needs. But their love of justice and patriotism, they will never, ever act for their own personal gain. Only for what's best for the country and best for the people. That's the kind of people who will be elected in a republic. And as we all know, every single elected official is the smartest and only care about what's best for the people and the country. Right? By the way, what have I just done? That's a good example of propaganda, isn't it? Did he believe that? Okay, maybe he believed it about himself. And he did believe that people like me are better than you. But he knew people are people. All right, so in the next part, here's what we have to get. They'll let the best people. They'll only let the best people. Do they only let the best people? Of course not. This might shock you. When somebody's running for office, they might lie about this. They might lie about what they do. I know none of you have ever heard a lie. So you can't imagine people. That's what we call trust the internet. Moving on. The next step. Oh, under such a regulation, it may well happen that the public voice pronounced by representatives of the people will be more consonant, which means consistent. Consistent to the public good that is pronounced by the people themselves. So your voice through me is better than your voice alone. What does that mean? You don't know what you want. Who knows what you want? Who knows what's good for you? There's a name for that. And the term is acting, don't think of terms like a natural father, but like government or leadership in a father-like way. Knowing what's best for you, doing what's best for you. Anybody know the term for that? And also a little bit of discipline you need. Could be any term. I don't know what term it could be. Could be anything. That's paternalism. Yeah, everyone write down paternalism. Paternalism. We know what's best. Implying we're not doing it for ourselves. You don't know. It's also something that every term said. The other point of difference is the greater number of citizens in the extended territory which be brought within the compass of the Republican and Democratic governments. So it's kind of restating that bigger. And it is this circumstance principally that renders factious combinations less to be dreaded. What does that mean? If we all decide everything, factions will dominate. But if we can take representatives away from you and your turbulent emotional, frankly, incompetence, and bring it here to one spot, you'll be less likely to have factions. Once again, that'd be another one, as I said, and you're incompetent, and you're like, oh. So it's implying you don't know, but if we pull you away from the riffraff, no parties. No parties. Was that true? They were dividing up in factions in the New York Assembly. Of course that wasn't true. But he's telling them what they wanted to hear. And then let's take the last one. This is one of my favorite. Extend the sphere, you take greater variety of parties and interests. You make it less probable that the majority of the whole will have common motive to invade the rights of other citizens. Protect whom? Say it again. Protect the minority. Very good. Protect the minority. So you can infringe on my rights. And who were the elite in New York? They were the elite. So those are the things we need to know about Federalist number 10. Those are the things we need to know. Everyone got that? It's a really amazing piece of propaganda. He didn't necessarily believe that. But was it self-interest? There's two elements of self-interest. He was an elite and he wanted to be empowered and trust you. But there's another example of self-interest I have to get to. James Madison was a patriot. He wanted this country to survive. And he sincerely believed that the only way it would survive was a strong central government with people like him. Who would benefit him? So he did believe this was the best form of government. And he did believe that it would personally benefit him. So is he wrong? Is that immoral? You can do things that are good for everybody and also benefit you. That doesn't mean it was right. It doesn't mean it was correct. You can do things like that. We all have done things that benefit ourselves and also benefit others. Give a gift to somebody who appreciates it. They appreciate it, you benefited them, and it benefits you because it feels good. I'm sure it's sociopath. Moving on. So, did it work? While they're debating in New York, I got to be clear about it. This didn't really work. They were like, I don't like being talked down to. But Virginia ratified. Virginia ratified. Why? Well, in Virginia, the biggest issue amongst the elite in Virginia in the House of Burgesses was that militia and Bill of Rights. And Madison promised Jefferson, I'll write a Bill of Rights. You deal with that militia. So Madison was actually kind of mad about it. But once Jefferson got that, Jefferson, in typical Jeffersonian fashion, dropped his opposition. He didn't go in favor of it, he just dropped his opposition. And that was enough to pass. Pennsylvania had already passed it. And once Virginia did, especially New York City representatives pushed it through and New York ratified it. So once that happened, they said the attraction must be irresistible. Irresistible. It's going to pull New York, and New York ratified it soon after Virginia. And once that happened, the Constitution was ratified. Once New York, ironically, New York is going to be the 11th state, but they did not ratify it officially to New York. Rhode Island didn't ratify it for a year and a half after Washington was made the first president. They didn't like it, but they had no choice because what's Rhode Island going to do? So they were kind of forced in it. Thus, our government's going to be created, and they immediately set about kind of ad hoc creating legislative districts, but the first thing they needed was an electoral college. And that is going to lead to our first form of government. But before we get to that, we've got to do the preamble. The most interesting part of the United States Constitution is the preamble. You're going to universally accept. Just write down the preamble. You don't need to write down the whole thing, just write down preamble. And that's the preamble. It's really short. It's really an amazing way to start this document. The rest of it's pretty dry, long. But here it lays out the goals they have for the United States. Now, they would have said, you know, we're going to have strong central government, a rule by a few, elite, not democracy. But at the same time, they lay out that this government, even if it is a rule by a few, have a responsibility for the common good, for justice, for domestic tranquility, whatever that might mean, common defense, no dictionary yet, and the general welfare. I mean, that's broad. We have a responsibility to everybody in the country, regardless of who's actually being elected or governing or voting. And you got to admit, the scribe nailed it. That is really cool. That's a great beginning to the document, that we the people. Yes, it didn't include a lot of people, but it laid out this idea that we do represent all. This is the kind of preamble that leads to the feeling that, yeah, maybe we should all have a voice in government because it says it right. So it's a big part of the Constitution in American history. I think it's great. Now, let me tell you about 52 years. 52 years ago, all television season, there were four networks, the three biggie, ABC, CBS, and NBC, and PBS was brand new. And Saturday morning was for children's programs. Saturday morning cartoons. They still do that a little bit, but nothing like it used to be. That was a big deal. You can imagine what the big deal was. They could sell commercials for sugary cereal and toys, right? And then put cartoons in it to get the kids to watch that, then beg their parents drop rotten teeth. But moving on. ABC. Things have changed. We're not like this anymore. But television networks had responsibility to not just sell, to educate. And so they took it to themselves to produce little shorts that they would show in between cartoons. So you watch a cartoon, and then there'd be a little short, and it was to educate people. Starting in 1973, and they produced a number over the next 5 or 6 years, and they run them reruns all the way to the early 1990s. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard of Schoolhouse Rock? So those be in between little cartoons, and they would show. And yeah, it's kind of it's little cartoonish history. It's propaganda, doesn't tell anything, but these were shown to everybody. And the one about the Constitution, 1973, and that is why today I memorized the words of the preamble. I know it verbatim. I was in my mid-40s when this came out in 1973, so I vividly remember. And so, I'll let you ponder my age. And so I learned it. Oh, so we're going to watch. Why we don't do my thoughts? We're going to watch this. Who has seen some Schoolhouse Rocks? Raise your hand. Seen not just this one, but any Schoolhouse Rocks. Yeah, I'm a Bill, yeah. This is my favorite one. Let's watch it. Let's watch this ad first. Who's seen this one? All right, it's tiny true. It's also propaganda. Teach little kids. Goodbye. They skip a few days, but you know what that's right. And it's kind of funny. You know, it's a bunch of compromises that no one likes, but you know. I've memorized the 3 numbers to this day. Now, speaking of propaganda, most people couldn't vote, especially her. Age and, you know. No, they did not stamp okay on the Constitution, as cool as that would have been. All right. Then we have, who had seen this one? Few? Last class, everybody had. You seen this one? I'm only a Bill, maybe I'll show, I don't know. Okay. Hawaii doesn't look like. So they had this, I remember watching this, a little kid, and like, where's Montana? And I couldn't stop it back then. Did you notice the jury looked different? They're trying. The YouTube videos. Old voting machine. Okay, it's 1973, so they put down right on. Very 73. I get rid of that for us. Okay. Here's the other one. I remember this too. Montana. There's just no one there. I guess they're right. But they have people in Dakota. All right. So let's get to the Federalist era really quick. Just a couple things and we'll be done for the day. The Federalist era, 1789 to that first government until 1801. Who are these guys? And yes, once again, guys, who's this? That's Washington. Who's that? That's Hamilton. Remember I told you how they made him even look like junior high age girls regardless, or elderly women? That's Adams. That's Madison. That's Jefferson. And these will be the dividing line with kind of Washington in the middle, even though he was more Federalist. So there's a number of things happen. We got to get the first thing. Number one, that Bill of Rights that Madison promised. So Madison's going to be elected to the House of Representatives. And he will be, House makes their own rules. So the person who beats the gavel and sets the agenda for the House is called the Speaker of the House. One of the most important positions in the United States. And Madison said about to write the Bill of Rights. He wrote it. The Bill of Rights. Write down 12 amendments, 10 would be ratified. That's 1791. 10 ratified. The 11th would be ratified 200 years later. Yeah, that's 27. And I'll tell you what that is when it's done tomorrow. And so here's one, we'll go through a couple of Bill of Rights. We're not gonna go through every one. Once again, you are gonna take a government class, AP government, you're gonna go a lot of through the Bill of Rights, obviously. We'll go through the like highlights of it, but I got this it's from a textbook, and the one you put on a transparency and then put it on an overhead projector. Anybody have a class where they still use overhead projectors? You know what one is? Yeah,
Mr. Phillips uses one in physics.
good. I did for a while, then I broke two. So this is kind of generically what it said. But like, for example, quartering of soldiers, that's in the Bill of Rights. Remember, that was one of the issues that led to the revolution. No illegal searches and seizures. Revolution. All of these, so they represent that. People being held without trial from the Revolutionary War. But I'll give you an example how people hear little bits about the Bill of Rights. They put in this thing for school transparency this is for school. This is from the teacher's edition. You've probably heard your First Amendment rights. And it says right there, freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. Right? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech? Doesn't say you have freedom of speech. By me asking that, you should already be like, wait a second. It does not say you have freedom of speech. It doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say that at all. So a lot of what people hear about the First Amendment or the other amendments and these little bits of our rights are actually not true. It does not say that. Guess what we'll begin class tomorrow with? How it does not say that. All we have is greater. You do not have freedom of speech. Speech is not. Whew. I'm hungry.
I got it from real fishers. Of course. That's kind of valid. That's fair. Okay. Okay.
Hey, I told you the reading assignment due Friday, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh? 260, 42, 93 for Friday. We're gonna put down 30 amount to give you one more down. So tomorrow we're gonna do the fastest Bill of Rights you've ever seen. Hopefully I'll be done with Washington. Yeah. For what? Oh, I haven't done, I haven't recorded those yet. I literally just got a grade, but I put it in the grade book, so I have to. Thank you for asking. Everyone like my clock being tilted. That make you feel comfortable? Yeah. You can do it? You have the grade? I had to go back there. See, if you haven't, I really want to give you the points. And what if I haven't set up, I don't get it out. You find it, I'll put it in there.
I don't remember her.
I'm ready to mention one.
I'll give you the points. Thank you. Oh, you know what? And you told me, and then I just know like, oh yeah, I'll record it and I didn't record it. I bet it was my fault. I'll get a change, it'll be on there as soon as I get a chance.
Address number 10 grade is blank.
I just haven't put those in yet.
Oh, okay.
But thank you for asking the thing to be last out. I gotta have rules about letting people like you in my room.
You should.
Are you with me on that?
I agree. Fully on your side with that one. This class feels so empty without me and Dawson and Andy.
You have no idea how difficult it's been.
I can't even imagine. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I don't have classes with either of them this year. It's heartbreaking.
I feel good for the teachers. I mean, I feel bad for you guys. I will be right back. Don't break anything.
We'll see about that one.
Oh, we're recording this. We recorded this conversation.
Oh, howdy. Like the view?